This is a quote. This is a public quote by Richard N. Haas, the current president of the Council on Foreign Relations, stated in his article. This is a public article. This is on the Council on Foreign Relations website and Club of Rome site. They're very proud of it. Okay? Very proud of this. State sovereignty must be altered in a globalized era, that a system of world government must be created and sovereignty eliminated in order to fight global warming, as well as terrorism. Moreover, states must be prepared to cede some sovereignty to world bodies if the international system is to function, said Haas. Globalization thus implies that sovereignty is not only becoming weaker in reality, but that it needs to become weaker. States would be wise to weaken sovereignty in order to protect themselves. So, hand it over to the bankers that are doing all this. That's what that means. Let me read you. This is from, by the way, this is 91. He said they would govern us with the social network of the global carbon tax to micromanage every facet of your life, and terrorism, that those would be used as the pincer attack. And that was in the First Global Revolution, published by the Club of Rome, republished by Council on Foreign Relations. And that is the report titled The First Global Revolution, 1991, published by the Club of Rome, a globalist think tank. We find the following statement, Richard N. Haas. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we must come up with the idea that population, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by the human intervention. The real enemy is humanity itself. And then the head of the CFR goes on. They're eugenicists, see, and they openly say they want 80% of us dead. And they say they hate the middle class, and they hate you living in that $1 million house, and they hate the fact that your kids look great and you got money in swimming pools. These are some real Scrooges, folks. If you study elites throughout history, though, this is pretty normal. They're really unhappy, soulless people. They're psychopathic sadists. All right. Now, you can go look this up. By the way, this is at the UT Library. We didn't just believe this on the CFR website when we were making Endgame. We went and actually got his reports. In fact, you ought to go to the UT Library if you live here in Austin or wherever you live. It was a big enough library. And you ought to go get Club of Rome publications. And actually, they have them. They're magazines. And you ought to get it out in your hand. So it's not Alex on TV telling you. You ought to flip it open. And you ought to read that for yourself. And it gets a lot worse. Instead of sitting there saying we're not telling the truth. These guys are so arrogant, they laugh about how you'll never... They write books. David Rockefeller wrote one 4 years ago. His autobiography. And he said, oh, I'm for world government getting rid of the U.S. Yeah. Yeah, people charge me with that, and I say guilty. He laughs also in the book, though, that no one will ever even read this. They know you don't read. They're going to hurt you. And they're going to hurt me, too. I mean, they're just out in the open or doing this, and we're just letting them? All you environmentalists, meanwhile, out there, I know you're good people. What is your problem? Didn't you know the oil companies created the global warming hoax? They're going to tax our carbon dioxide and our ozone emissions, inert gases, but they're going to leave the coal-burning plants and take the restrictions off where they can burn the dirtiest coal they want, filled with mercury. That's one example of thousands. You've been totally co-opted, but you can't get past telling your friends at the coffee shop while you're acting cool. I don't care if you got sandals on. I don't care if you wear a clown outfit. I don't care how you dress, if you got a shaved head or a big beard. Just stop acting so trendy. We're in deep trouble. Their own documents say this is neo-serfdom and feudalism. This is one-child policies. This is horrible stuff. This is being done by design. And I'm begging you. Peak oil is a fraud by the oil companies to create artificial scarcity. If you don't know what artificial scarcity is, look it up in an encyclopedia. And I'm not on the high horse. I'm not that smart. You can figure this out too. Let me just go over the news here. First thing I want to cover is an Infowars.net story by Steve Watson. Great article. leading economic writer, financial meltdown, a gigantic fraud. And he goes on to report that it's being engineered. And the Times of London reported 8 months ago now, time flies, 8 months ago, that the big central banks were engineering this. This is all being engineered. And it's in their official IMF documents. But it's interesting to see that the London Guardian says America was conned, who will pay? And you read this and it says, the South Sea bubble ended in riots and trust was lost. Wall Street also duped the public. And he goes on to say it was engineered. Now, on my own message board or on comments under the stories we post, they come in here and it's the fake conservative type. They're not real conservatives. It's like a cult. They just repeat whatever they're told. And they're in here laughing and going, oh, look at those dumb people in those tent cities in Illinois and Michigan and California and Florida. They're just a bunch of lazies. Those dumbasses shouldn't have gotten loans they couldn't pay off. And granted, I mean, these were predatory loans. Granted, they didn't understand what they were getting into. And granted, they didn't know that they were going to lose their jobs. That's another, it's not just the subprime. The whole point here is that the banks and brokerage houses, AAA rated and insured investments that at tops had 24, 25% actual assets backing them up. They would certify junk bundles of mortgages and sell that to people like you, the yuppies that laugh at people in tent cities. And this was engineered. And so there's this elitist disdain by people driving around in pickup trucks living in $200,000 houses, like they're the elite of people that are down and out. Like you're playing the part of Big Shot or something. If you don't get your head screwed on and get angry about what's happening, they're going to politically sniff the wind and decide to go all the way with this. So let me give you the big picture, then I'll give you the focus in on different sectors in the 15 minutes we've got left here. You can go to Infowars.com if you want to read this Guardian story. We have a link to it. We have Steve's article that's more detailed, showing how it indeed is engineered and how it's much worse than even they're saying. Okay? I mean, a child is bad when a killer pulls up in front of their house with candy and the child doesn't listen to their mother or father and runs out and wants the candy or the puppy and then gets put in there and taken and raped and snuff films are made. The child was bad. The people being conned by the banks are bad, like the child. But who's worse, the child who got tricked into the car or the guy that did it? I mean, can you neocons, followers, camp followers, cannon fodder, slaves, can you equate that? I mean, do you know what it means when two big brokerage firms, the third largest, Bear Stearns, and then Carlyle Financial, quite large in the top 10, do you know what that means when they implode in one day? There was 300,000 employees plus at Bear Stearns who aren't getting jack crap. They're going to get less than 2% of their pensions. Did the people at Enron deserve that? This isn't funny. Okay? This isn't funny. They're on my website telling me I'm a traitor for saying the dollar's being devalued and saying, our dollar's just fine. Shut up, you damn liberal. I'm not the one for gun control and open borders. You shut up and love your president. Okay? You shut up. You've helped destroy this country. Now, let's go over this. J.P. Morgan is one of the main owners of the private Federal Reserve. They actually own the central bank that orders the currency to be issued and liquidity and sets the rules. Okay? It's predominantly British owned. The families that own it, the private stock, that isn't even public. These are private companies. Very guarded info. But they are a Federal Reserve Bank member. I don't mean it's FDIC on the window or it's regulated by the Fed. I know how you're programmed out there. I mean the 12 member banks that own the Federal Reserve. Go read the Federal Reserve Act, okay? Please. For once in your life, actually do some research instead of being arrogant and giggling while you watch. You're not going to be laughing soon. This isn't funny. They engineered the Great Depression. That's now public, mainline textbooks, as a consolidation, as a transfer. They engineered what happened in the late 70s, what happened in the late 80s. But those were small contractions, the 70s and 80s, compared to what's happening now. In 1993, the decision was made to go to unlimited fractional reserve banking. Before, a bank would have $1, they'd loan out $10. Or they'd set up another bank and loan it $1 and then let it leverage out. And within 4 or 5 times, you could go to infinity. But they took all restrictions off in the early 90s, and the big banks that were issuing all this weren't just bundling and giving everybody credit and giving people mortgages. That's a small part of it. That's what tricked all this off, and that's what the Bilderberg Group, we told you 2 years before this happened, remember 3 years ago? They said they were going to pop that bubble to cause the implosion and bring us into the feudal state. I mean, Endgame's got interviews 2+ years ago where that's all being said. Now you see it. I mean, isn't the proof in what we say happens? The proof in our credibility here? But regardless, you'll find out. Look, this is like I'm asking you not to jump off a cliff, and you already jumped off of it. But it was only a cliff down 20 feet, and you broke your legs. Now there's another cliff 200 feet down, and you're crawling to jump off it, and I'm saying, look, please, it's a cliff. Please. And you just giggle at me and say, shut up, conspiracy theorist. Or you are preconditioned, you go, I don't own stock, why do I care? When those companies go under or contract, you lose your job with those companies. Or people you do business with do. And then you don't make as much money. Don't you understand that? Everybody I talk to who's a yuppie says, I dumped all my stock, I'm not worried about it. You have this attitude of never thinking it's going to happen to you. You think you're an island. No man is an island in and of itself. All right, I got to move fast. So they flooded the world with currency and credit and just endless liquidity while they grabbed nickel mines, silver mines.